Hey guys, Parallel here, and welcome to Star Trek Online. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the Vesta. I'm here on my Federation Science character, and this was actually my main character that I started playing when I got back into Star Trek Online a little over 6 months ago, back right after Delta Rising expansion came out. And the Vesta was actually the first Seastore ship that I purchased, and it quickly became kind of my favorite go-to ship. I used it for a very long time, and I enjoyed it a lot. So you can see here I actually purchased the multi-mission Vesta bundle, which came with all 3 variants of the Vesta. So I will go ahead and show you my build for this ship. The variant that I'm actually going to be focusing on is the Aventine class, which is kind of the more tactically oriented of the Vestas. And so I'll show you my full build. It is going to be an exotic damage build, so it's a little bit different from the battlecruiser builds that I've been showing. And then I will go ahead and show the ship customization options in the tailor. Since I own all 3 of these from the bundle, you can mix and match these. There's quite a few options that you can do to customize your ship. Then I will be going through the Argala system patrol to show the performance of this ship, and also I will do an ISA so you can see it in the standard advanced queue, see how it does. And I will also be running the combat log reader during those runs, and I will try to, if everything works out, try to show do a little breakdown of how the damage stacks up from all the different sources, so you can see how the exotic damage actually works on this ship. Alright, so let's get started here. So here's the 3 versions that you can get: the Aventine, the Raidmaker, and the Vesta. And like I said, the Aventine class is the more tactically focused of the ships. It has, let me scroll down here, it has 4 tactical, 2 engineering, and 4 science. Now these are tier 5 ships, and I did actually upgrade the Aventine class to tier 5U, so I can show you what you get for that upgrade. But as you can see, this is a more tactically oriented with 4 tactical and 4 science. The Raidmaker is 3 tactical, 3 engineering, and 4 science. And then the Vesta is more of the full science. I believe it has 5 science, 3 tactical, and 2 engineering. So that's where you can go to buy these ships in the Seastore. And let me pull up the ship that I'm using here. Here is the Aventine class. It's the Multi-Mission Reconnaissance Explorer, Tier 5U. And you can see here, since I have the mastery here, you can see I've already unlocked this to Tier 5U. And when you do unlock it to Tier 5U, you get that extra science console, which is why I chose to upgrade this particular version, because you get the 5 science consoles, which is great. You still get the 4 tactical, which is a nice buff to your weapon power. I've always liked the kind of mix of science and tactical. It seems to fit my playstyle the best. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the build. Like I said, this is going to be an exotic damage build. So that means I'm going to be putting a lot of particle gens in here to stack up my particle gen skill. And that is kind of the main focus, and I have a few other pieces here. So let's just start going through. So this is a standard 3 forward and 3 aft weapons that almost all science vessels get. And since this is an exotic damage build, I want to try to take advantage of the particle emission plasma torpedo. So since torpedoes are kind of a forward firing weapon, I kind of like to go with a more forward firing build. The ship is quite maneuverable, so it can easily support, a forward-firing build. So I do go with my usual dual anti-proton beam banks up front, 2 of them, Crit D3, Crit H modifier, and then I have the particle emission plasma torpedo upgraded to Mark 14. Now here's the thing with this torpedo. This is actually a crafted torpedo. If you want to get this, you either have to craft it yourself or you can buy them off the exchange. They're fairly reasonably priced. This is ultra rare. I believe cost me about 4 million or so credits, so not too bad. But the main reason why you want this torpedo is the proc that it gets. So when this, you can read in the tooltip here, it says creates a plasma cloud on impact which lasts for 6 seconds and deals 495 plasma damage every 1 second. So it's that proc. And this is one of the few torpedoes that actually benefit from your exotic damage bonuses. I believe this one and the other one that I also torpedo that I use sometimes is the gravimetric torpedo. I believe these are the only 2 torpedoes that have a proc that benefit from your exotic damage. I believe the neutronic torpedo does radiation damage, and I don't think that is buffed by it. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments. But so I've tried both. I've tried the gravimetric and the particle emission plasma. For this build, I've found that the particle emission plasma seems to give superior DPS, so I've been going with that. And it's a little more consistent because you always get that plasma cloud, whereas with the gravimetric torpedo, it's just a 33% chance to create those rifts that do a little extra damage. So for this build, for top DPS, I do recommend the particle emission plasma. Okay, and for my space set here, I am going with the Iconian set. And I'm actually not sure, let's mouse over here, I am using the 3 pieces, and I want to get info. And the reason why I use the 3-piece Iconian set is of course for the set 3 bonus, the energy augmentation actuator, which gives you the 5% chance to increase all energy weapon damage by 15% for 8 seconds and stacks 3 times and gives it to your allies. So I'm running that set just to boost my weapon damage. I don't believe it affects exotic. Again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like it does. It says energy damage. So there's that. And since this is a genuine science vessel, it does get the secondary deflector. You can see the one I'm using here. I haven't upgraded this to Mark 14 yet. I probably should, but I did get lucky, and this I did buy a Mark 10 version and upgraded it to Mark 12, and I did get it up to Epic, which was pretty lucky. So you can see the mods I'm getting here. It does get good particle gen mod, flow cap mod, and then I got the sensor mod in there, which is not great, but better than nothing. And I'm using the inhibiting version of the secondary deflector, so it has the radiation damage when you can see the list of abilities down there when you use your gravity well. This will do a little bit of extra radiation damage. It's not very much, but I figured I might as well get this version because I will be using gravity well as my main source of exotic damage, along with the plasma clouds from the torpedo. Those are going to be your 2 major sources of exotic damage. Okay, so I am using the 3-piece Iconian set for the deflector, impulse engine, and shields. And then I'm using the Elite Fleet Plasma Integrated Warp Core for the amp bonus, and then the resistance to weapon power drain. For my aft weapons, I'm using, like I said, this is a forward firing build, so I'm using 3 omnidirectional beams, so 360 degrees. All 3 of these will be firing forward. So I'm using the kinetic cutting beam, ancient omnidirectional beam, and the crafted omnidirectional beam. For my devices, I'm using the temporal negotiator, Nimbus Pirate distress call, and subspace field modulator. I don't have a red matter capacitor, unfortunately. For my consoles, so I really love the console layout of this ship. So this is the Tier 5U version, so like I said, you do get that extra science console, but I really like how it has lots of focus on science and tactical, and just 2 engineering, which is honestly all you really need for this ship. So you can see in here I threw in my plasmonic leech and my constriction anchor. So this console, you'll see this on a lot of exotic damage builds because of that 23.7% bonus exotic damage. That's why you have that here. the little anchor drone that it launches is okay, but that's not the main reason for it. And I am using the assimilated module, so this was kind of a choice that I made since I'm running a forward-firing build. I'm running the kinetic cutting beam already anyway. I figured I might as well slot this to get the 2-piece Borg bonus. And I'm also not going to be running greedy emitters on this build, so that could be a a valuable bonus. I can show it here real quick if anyone doesn't know, but the two-piece Borg bonus for these two items you get is the Omega Weapon Amplifier, and it procs quite often, and it gives you 10 current weapon power, and it gives you plus 500 weapon power resistance rating, which means your weapons drain less power, and it gives you plus 5 maximum weapon power resistance rating. So basically your weapon's drawing a lot less power when this procs, and it increases your current weapon power. So it's a amazing proc. I mean, honestly, until some of the recent traits came out that reduce weapon energy cost, this was kind of a staple for almost every top DPS build, was getting the 2-piece Borg bonus. So I am running that, but I was a little bit, I guess, undecisive or undecided on, which, if it was better to put this console here or better to just throw in another of these, which are the plasma generating weapon signature nullifiers. So I'm running 4 of them now, and I could see running a 5th here, and not going for the Borg 2-piece as kind of an alternate build, maybe with greedy emitters. You could probably do that. But for now, I'm just running the 4 science console or plasma generating consoles. All of them have a particle gen modifier on them. And once we get out into space, I will show you that I am actually capping out my the particle gen bonus that you get for this trait right here, the particle manipulator trait. I will go into that. This trait is kind of the key to all of your science exotic damage builds, and I'll be getting into that a little more detail in a second, but that's why I'm running particle gen here on these consoles. And in my tactical consoles, I've got the vulnerability locators, Mark 14 with plus anti-proton. Pretty much a standard tactical console. They're very good for increasing your crit rate and getting up that anti-proton damage. And the Vesta does come with a hanger, which is pretty cool. And I'm unfortunately just using a pretty terrible pet here, just the regular runabouts. I know a lot of people do use the Scorpion fighters here, which is a more DPS oriented. In all honesty, I've never been too impressed with hanger pet DPS, and I kind of like the runabouts because they do put tractor beams on people, which can be kind of cool. They do moderate DPS. The Scorpions will out DPS them, but I do like the tractor beam. Someday I would like to upgrade these to the Yellowstone runabouts, the Fleet Elite runabouts, but they are fairly expensive. And since they don't contribute much DPS, I'm just sticking with the normal versions for now. While I'm here, I can just quickly show you the Starship Mastery traits that this gets when you upgrade to Tier 5U. It gets the Science package, which is the increased exotic damage by 15%, the plus shield hit points, the improved hull healing and shield healing, and then 24.4 shield regenerate every 6 seconds, and reduces damage to shields by 5%, so a little bit of shield hardness there. Alright, so I will quickly show my skills, and you can see, I'll just scroll down here so you can take a look at what I have. I do have, of course, maxed out into particle generator skill, and you can actually see I don't invest anything into projectile weapons, even though I am running that one torpedo. The idea of that torpedo is mostly for the plasma proc exotic damage, not to actually hit for a lot of damage just from the torpedo itself. I mean, of course you could invest in this if you wanted to. It's just you'd have to take some points out somewhere else to do that. Alright, so there are my skills. Now for specializations, I am just running 20 points into a little over 20 points in intelligence for all the space skills. I love the space flanking that you get down here. Very good space skill. And I'm running a little bit into pilot. I am still trying to rank up my pilot to get the improved pedal to the metal. But for now, this build, yeah, for now is just a secondary, so I've invested up to. You don't get these bonuses as a secondary anyway, so I've pretty much invested pilot up here to get rock and roll trait, which is kind of the key thing I always get from the pilot tree. Alright, and now on to traits. So I'll start right here with the trait that I mentioned earlier, Particle Manipulator. This is the key trait for all of your exotic damage builds. And I'll show you why in just a minute here. I'm going to... That's okay. I'll beam up because I want to see the numbers don't display correctly when you're not in space, and it'll be a little easier to show why I've selected as much particle generator skill as I have if I'm out here in space and you can properly see the stats. So as you can see, here's the Particle Manipulator trait. Now to unlock this trait, you need to get to rank 15 in your science crafting skill. So go here to your R&D tab in your duty officers, go down here to science. This is the skill you need to get to rank 15. So it's very time gated. You got to grind away at this with those daily it doesn't show, but you have to do the daily project that gives you your science XP and keep grinding that away until you get to rank 15. That unlocks this trait. So this trait, you can see, gains 0.2% critical chance and 0.1% critical severity for exotic damage abilities per point you have in particle generators. So there it is. That's why you need to invest in a particle generator, because it makes all of your exotic damage crit and it gives them crit severity as well. Now they recently changed this to, they added this here where the critical chance bonus is capped at 50%. And you can continue to increase particle gens after that, but it only gives you a little bit more of the severity, which is, in my opinion, honestly not that worth it. Once you get up to that 50% crit, I think you've pretty much, there's a higher opportunity cost to keep going past that. You're putting all of these mods into particle gen, and you could potentially put it into other areas that would benefit more than just a little bit more crit severity. So, in my opinion, I just leave it to kind of get it right close to the 50% critical hit chance cap and kind of leave it off there. And as you can see, let me go to my ship here. If I go back here, if I take one of these out, go back onto my trait, you can see I'm down to 48.9% crit chance. So that's why I put 4 consoles in here. That, and also they give the plasma proc, so having 4 of those there, plasma procking with energy weapon damage is good as well. So there it is. You can actually look here, if I look at my stats here as well, you can see what my particle gen actually is. Particle generator, no, that's graviton. Particle generator is 282, and that's what it gives you. So there it is, Particle Manipulator. If you want to make an exotic damage build, you gotta have this. Simple as that. Alright, for the other traits, I'll go through quickly here. Accurate for the 10% accuracy, elusive for the 10% defense. Goods is a good trait, especially for running reciprocity. Warp Theorist for the little bit of extra power and extra EPS is always nice. Since I am using beam build on this with just the one torpedo, I still think the beam barrage skill is very good. This is another trait you unlock from, this time you have to rank up your beam crafting skill up to rank 15 to unlock this. This gives you your plus 2% beam damage for 30 seconds and stacks 3 times. This is pretty much almost a constant uptime. So, because you get it anytime you activate a beam skill, which is, so when you activate your fire at will, it'll proc this, and since you have more than, you keep your fire at wills going at least more than once every 30 seconds, you can keep this up perma. Alright, then of course here was particle manipulator. I already went through that. And here I'm using conservation of energy for the 10% bonus on exotic damage whenever you are struck by energy damage. So if you're taking any hits, it will stack up to 3 times, so it's very good for an exotic damage build. I am running photonic capacitor. This decreases the cooldown on your photonic fleet. Reduces it quite a bit, honestly, so every time as you're activating your science abilities, it will trigger this minus 20-second cooldown from your photonic fleet. And photonic fleet is pretty good. I mean, you can keep it going. It contributes a reasonable portion of your DPS. I'm also running point blank shot, which gives you a bonus to energy weapon damage if you're close into the target, less than 6 kilometers. And so it's a good trait. It was in the last featured episode that came out. Gives you this as a trait reward. And then I'm also running Astrophysicist for the extra flow cap, extra particle gen, and, well, the Starship Sensor is not a big deal. Honestly, you could probably throw another trait in here if you have a better, one of the lockbox traits or something. You could fit it here, and it would be probably quite a bit better. This is not really a needed trait. For my Starship traits, I'm running all hands on deck. Just a good stable power on almost every build for its reduction to, and particularly science builds, because it does give you the 10% recharge time on science and bridge officer abilities every time it triggers, and also 5% on all captain abilities every time it triggers, and it can trigger every 5 seconds. And it's triggered every time you use a tactical or command bridge officer ability. So since you'll be using your fire at wills and your torpedo spreads, this will be going off, maybe not every 5 seconds, but pretty close, and it will reduce your recharges a lot. I'm also using an emergency weapon cycle. This is the new trait that came off the Tier 6 battle cruisers for the reduction to weapons power cost. And I'm also using reciprocity. This gives you a minus 10% recharge time on intelligence and tactical bridge officer abilities. So this is good for getting more fire at wills and torpedo spreads off, more attack patterns off. So you get this recharge every time someone misses you. So if you have a decent defense and you're taking a lot of incoming fire, this will actually reduce your cooldowns by quite a bit. For the final trait, I am running Emitter Synergy. I believe this is the trait you get from the, I think it's the Scryer Intel Science Vessel. And this one gives you 7.5% exotic damage, stacks up to 3 times, and 7.5% shield heals for 15 seconds, stacks 3 times. And this stacks each time you're using tactical or intelligence abilities. So again, since you're going to be firing off your attack patterns, your fire at wills, this will be probably stacked up most of the time, and gives you 7.5 times 3% or times 3 stacks. So for the reputation traits, I'm of course running precision, advanced targeting for the crit severity, auxiliary power configuration, offensive, and you can see here just with my current aux power level, it's already giving me a 5% all damage and 5% accuracy, and this is a category 2 bonus, which means this bonus is calculated after all of your kind of base damage bonuses are calculated, so it's a very, very good trait, and my aux power will be going up as well during combat once my plasmonic leech is going and everything else. For this build, I am going to use the enhanced armor penetration trait for the 5% armor penetration, and my understanding is that the way that this trait works is that it actually does apply a very short duration debuff to the target, where it debuffs their armor resistance, which is really good for if you're trying to focus on doing damage with your exotic damage, if you can debuff the enemy, that's another way of improving how much damage they'll take from your exotic damage abilities. In fact, that's kind of the theme of this ship here. You can see in my build, taking a look at the bridge officer seating, I do actually run 2 copies of attack pattern beta. So the whole idea is that with your fire at will going and your attack pattern betas going, you'll be debuffing a lot of targets. They'll be making all of your exotic, your plasma clouds, your gravity wells, tractor beam repulsors will all be hitting for a lot more damage. So the idea is that this will be kind of a debuffing setup that makes sure that your exotic abilities do maximum damage instead of going with like an attack pattern omega, for example. Alright, so you can see one of the things I do like about this ship is the seating, which is very, very flexible. You've got your universal lieutenant commander here, universal ensign, then you've got your tactical, lieutenant tactical, lieutenant engineering, and your commander science. So this is a very flexible seating. As you can see, you can actually fit 3 tactical officers in here if you want. I in fact do that here. Just a warning about doing this is, I'm not going to lie, this build is very squishy. That's probably the downfall of this build, and you will see when I do an ISA, if I don't die at least once or twice, I will be quite surprised, because this ship, it feels like an escort. It's made of paper, which is unfortunate, particularly in the Borg ones, because since they buffed tachyon beams, the Borg will drain your shields incredibly quickly, and that's really the only way that this ship can tank is with its strong shields, because it does have a good shield modifier. But yeah, its hull is paper, and you feel like an escort half the time in this thing. But it is a very fun build. It is a maneuverable ship, and I do like it with the the torpedoes coming, launching a lot of torpedo spreads. So that is why I went with this build. So as you can see here, I am running 2 fire at wills, 2 attack pattern betas, and 2 torpedo spreads. So I like to use the torpedo spreads to make sure you're always getting a spread on your plasma torpedoes when they fire, and you get the maximum amount of those plasma clouds out there to do some good damage. I'm actually thinking to maybe help with survivability slightly would be to maybe replace one of these with a tactical team. That would help out to keep your shields balanced. So that's an option. If you wanted more survivability, you'd be better off probably using this ensign universal for an engineering or maybe another science slot, so you can get another heal in there, or something along those lines. But again, since I'm using 3 tactical officers, the nice thing there is, of course, you can use your 3 Romulan. So let me go down here to my Romulan. You can use your 3 Romulan embassy buffs. So, and as you can see, of course, using your Romulan embassy buffs, you get the superior Romulan operative trait, and you can get 3 of them stacked up. So just by slotting those 3 bridge officers, that gives you another 6% crit and 15% crit severity, which is totally worth it, which is why, even though this is a squishy build, it does put out good damage. So for my engineer, I'm using my Nausicaan diplomacy buff. He does get the pirate trait for the 2% damage, or is it 1.5? I actually don't remember. It is... it's only 1.5, but it is category 2 bonus. So the 1.5% category 2 bonus here, and then for my science officer, I'm using the hierarchy buff that you get from the Delta Quadrant mission episodes. So as you can see, I'm running emergency power to shields and emergency power to weapons here, and this is a Drake build, so these will be kept up nearly 100% of the time. And then for my science, so I always like to run science team and hazard emitters, just for at least some survivability to remove debuffs, and a good hazard emitters is just a great all-around ability. good hull heal, and it even gives a resistance bonus, and it removes plasma fires. So I always consider that a must-have for a science. Now for my exotic damage, from the abilities at least, I'm using Gravity Well 3 and Tractor Beam Repulsors 2. And I'll show you why I'm using that here in a second when I get to the duty officers. So that is the build. Like I said, very more offense oriented and not very defense. I've only got, emergency power to shields, science team, and hazard emitters for defensive capabilities, which is not super. But there it is. Okay, let's head over here and I will show you my duty officers. So here are my duty officers that I'm running. Like I said, this is a Drake build, so I'm running 3 damage control engineers. And I never explained this very well, I don't think, but the idea here is that each of these 3 damage control engineers gives you a 30% chance to reduce the recharge time of your emergency power to subsystem abilities. So each time my emergency power to shields goes off, you have 3 of these doffs here. Each one has a 30% chance to reduce the cooldown on both and all of your emergency powers. So both my emergency powered weapons and emergency powered shields will have their cooldown reduced. And since each one of these is triggering every 15 seconds, you get 2 tries, and they last for 30 seconds. So you get 2 tries, so basically 6 rolls of 30% to reduce the cooldown to make both of these have 100% uptime, which works most of the time. It's still not 100% guaranteed, of course. You could fail all 6 rolls within that 30-second time frame, and then you'll have a short downtime between when the emergency power to that system would come back online. But if you only got 2 engineering slots, this is probably the best you can do to get 100% uptime with a Drake build. So they takes 3 of my slots there, and then here I have Gragamal. This is the officer that gives your tractor beam repulsors. It changes them from a push to a pull, which is really nice. I really like this officer for most of the time. A lot of the times using tractor beam repulsors, if you don't use them wisely, they can push enemies out of range beyond 10 kilometers, and it gets very annoying to your team. So with this guy, this allows you to instead pull them in towards you, which is really good. It brings them into range of your point blank shot and makes you do a lot of damage, and makes it so your teammates don't get mad at you for pushing things out of range. So it makes your tractor beam repulsors a lot more useful in more situations. The only thing you got to watch out for is that those warp core breaches. If you destroy things right when they're point blank on you, then you can get destroyed by those warp core breaches when you take them out. And finally, for the last officer, I am using a very rare gravimetric scientist, which gives you these additional chances to proc more gravity wells, which is nice since a gravity well is a good source of exotic damage. Gives you a chance to proc an additional gravity well, then a 20% chance to drop another one. So you can actually sometimes get 3 or potentially 4. I've never actually seen 4, I don't think, but I have seen 3 gravity wells come out of this. So kind of a cool duty officer if you're looking to do exotic damage with your gravity well. Alright, so there it is. That is the full build. Hopefully I explained that well. Like I said, this is an exotic damage build. I have a lot of fun with this build just because it is fun to actually use a torpedo. I mean, most of my cruiser builds and even the build that I've been running on the Nandi aren't really, they're all beam builds. So I find this build just a lot more fun just because it does have that torpedo, and it is very effective. Okay, so let's go over here and take a look at the ship and the tailor before showing how we do in some queues. So I actually do have the Iconian visuals on. I always forget to turn those off, but let's do that. So you can see what the ship looks like without any space gear on. So here it is. Here's the Vesta that I've chosen. I've actually mixed and matched a few of the parts. So let's take a look at the materials real quick. You've got your type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and 5. It doesn't get the type 7 material, unfortunately, which I do like. You've got your upgrade material, you've got your Vesta material, and your veteran material. When you select the Vesta material, you actually get some option over here to actually choose Vesta as a pattern, which gives you some cool potential coloring choices. As you can see here, you can make, it gives you, that pattern gives you a lot of different areas of the ship that you can color differently. So there are the materials. You can also mix and match the the saucer hull nacelles and stanchions here. I don't know why they don't call them pylons, but you can mix and match between the the 3 different variants here. Although you can only do this if you did buy the pack of 3. So there are a lot of different options, different nacelles you can pick from. The different hulls. Let's see here if you need to look at different hulls. Let's take a look at a profile here. So the different hulls. So you have the Aventine, that's the one I kind of use the most. You've also got your Raidmaker. This one's kind of cool because it has this kind of a sealed in or shielded shuttle bay, which is kind of cool looking. And then you've got your this is the regular Vesta class, which has just kind of your normal sort of a landing strip here for the shuttle. I do like the Aventine one. I do really like the deflector dish on the Aventine. It has kind of the longer, sleeker look to it. And then of course the saucer, you can choose from the 3. I'm using the Aventine one. You can see the Raidmaker one is a little bit rounder. So if you like the more circular type saucer, you could choose the Raidmaker. The Vesta is kind of I guess an in-between compromise between those two. The Aventine is kind of the most longest and sleekest one, and the Vesta is a little bit more round. Kind of reminds me of the, I guess not quite, but a little bit more closer to, like, say, Voyager's shape. A little bit more oval, but still with a, pointed towards the front. So there it is. I'm going to cancel there and just quickly go back into it. And you can kind of see in the front, I believe that's supposed to be the secondary deflector. I think on some of the other saucers it shows up a little better. Like on the Vesta, you can actually see a little bit more of the secondary deflector there. But it looks pretty cool. Alright, so there are the customization options. Let's head back up to space. And I will be heading off shortly to Argala to see how this ship does. But before that, I do want to also look at my stats of the ship in space. And also let me turn back on the Iconian visuals here, which I actually do really like on this ship. The deflector looks absolutely amazing with the Iconian deflector visuals. It just looks really, really cool. I like how they kind of has the orange center glow and it fades out to kind of a bluish on the outside. Really awesome looking deflector dish on this. I've kind of colored it a darkish color to kind of goes along with the dark black and red accents that you get with the Iconian set. So very, very cool looking ship. I like it a lot. Alright, so let's take a look at, I wanted to look at the stats for the ship. So you can see a crew of 750, Power transfer rate is 13.8, so a little bit above average that I'm getting here. Yeah, hull rating of 53,000, which is, I guess, not horrible for a science ship, but still not great. This ship is by no means a tank, so it will die quickly. And you can see that my resists are also quite low. But it does get 13,000 shield, which is, I believe it has a 1.3 shield modifier, which is quite good. So good shielding. You can see my crit chance here is 20%, which is good. I believe this does add on to your what you get from the particle manipulator trade, so I believe that should be a 70% chance to crit with exotic damage abilities. I'll have to double check that. Maybe I'll look afterwards, take a look at the log and see how that turns out. Crit severity of 90%, and I already showed you my particle gens are at 282. S40 inertia, so very maneuverable. It's got a turn rate of 14.3. I'm actually not sure what the base turn rate is, maybe 12, but with my gear it is up to 14.3, which is good. Good maneuverable ship. Alright, we are off to the Delta Quadrant. Yeah, since this was my first C-Store ship, I am very partial to the ship. I love the Vesta. I played it for a long time. I did use the gravimetric torpedo for a long time until I heard about the plasma particle emission torpedoes, which are quite superior. So I definitely do recommend getting those. You can take a look at the power levels that I'm running here. I have tried to balance them as best as I can to give, to make sure all my power levels get up to 75 or higher once I'm running the plasmonic leech, which you will see in combat. You'll see all these power level rise once the plasmonic leech is going and the emergency power to shields and everything turns on. Everything should be just, I think engines I had to put a little bit more than 15 power in to get it up to 75, so it's actually at 25 power. And you can see I'm not quite running at 100% weapons power because I wanted to put a little bit more into aux. Once the plasmonic leech and everything is going on my aux, it should be close to 125 as well. Alright, so here we go. Let's launch some roundabouts. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention on my secondary deflector here, when I mouse over it, you can actually see it does have the bonus to sensor analysis. I'm not quite sure how the math works on that bonus. It says, I believe, a 20% bonus to sensor analysis. I'm not quite sure how much that affects your damage. I know sensor analysis is a very good debuff on the target, so it does help a lot. Alright, let's do a nice spread, put a nice gravity well on all of them. See, they're already dead. This guy flies right into my gravity well. Ooh, another gravity well procced. He's going to go down real fast. Let's take a look at this guy. Let's get my photonic fleet in here. Debuff this guy. Get some tractor beams on him. Oh, I wasn't even close enough when he died. Let's get sensor analysis going on this guy. Oh, he placated me. So I do like to run Science Team because it will get rid of placates. And these erosion do like to do that. It is annoying, but the science team can deal with that. I'm gonna put a grav well on this guy. And of course he placated me again. That's weird. Not sure why my science team would get rid of that, but you see he's still dying for my grav well even though I couldn't even target him. Getting a little bit of lag, which is unfortunate. Honestly, the lag, if you see my last video that I posted, the lag has been really bad the last few days. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's just something to do, because I think there's a big update coming this Thursday, so maybe it's something related to that. They're doing some work on the servers or something.
Warning, ship is under attack.
These guys, I'm going to use that to get my science skills up. Use this. Sensor analysis them. And you can see they're down. I didn't even use my science fleet. But you can see very, very effective. You throw that gravity well on them, get your sensor analysis going, all your plasma procs are hitting them. It takes down stuff really fast and effective. Very fun ship, very maneuverable. You know, you're using lots of different abilities instead of just, you know, just buffing your weapons and having your, you know, weapons do all the damage. It is a lot of fun to activate all the cool flashy, you know, powers, gravity well, tractor beam emitters. I didn't really use those very effectively either. As much as I love this ship, I haven't flown it in a while now. I've been playing around a lot with the Nandi and the new cruisers that came out, so I'm a little bit out of practice. Alright, let's queue up. I'm not sure why I was going to create private, but let's queue up for an ISA, see how this does. Alright, I'm in. Sorry for the short jump cut there, but I thought I would skip ahead to when the queue actually popped, just to keep the video going. And here we are. Let's get pets out.
Ship is under attack.
Alright, so yeah, this is just a random pug, so let's keep an open mind here. Hopefully it will go well. I'm not going to blow any cooldowns here on the initial spheres and cube. Okay, not too bad. So far so good. Hopefully the lag doesn't get bad. Let's head over here and take out the cube and sphere. Hopefully no one blows a generator too early. Keep an eye down there just to see if it does. The sphere is down. Let's get the rest of these generators going. Start popping some coins here. Let's get my photonic fleet in. Let's get the rest of the generators down. Alright, let's get on this transformer. I'm going to put my gravity well right on it. Suck in some cubes. Sensor scan it. Put everything on it. Let's get the scattering field going. So don't take too much damage. Okay, wow, that was really fast. Okay, apparently I got destroyed by the breach there. Let's see if we can get back in here quickly. get a gravity well going on these spheres. That was a good spread. You do your magic.
Your culture will adapt to service ours.
Whoops. To escape the target there. Let's head over here to the next one, get the cube down. Oh, someone had a really big hit on that. Holy cow. Let's get the memory generators down. I'm calling my photonic fleet here. Alright, let's get this transformer. Get that going, get that going, get that going.
You will lower your shields and
Science team up. Get my arrow shield out. Get some good flanking bonuses. Alright, there we go. Worked a little better, and I did get destroyed, which helps. Let's get the spheres in range here. Another 15 seconds on gravity well, unfortunately. These are going down pretty fast. Gateway, and I do not want to mess with that cube right now. Let's say we're in the gateway. Let's mark it. Let's get a gravity well going. There's a tractor beam on it. And let's get photonic fleet up again. Let's sensor scan it. Get debuff going. Good. Wow, this is going really fast. Sensor analysis U. Okay, I'm in the front. I don't want to kind of make my way over to the back here. Some flanking bonus going. Alright, gravity well, tractor beam. Let's use my science buff. This thing is dropping quick. Might as well use a refracting Tetron beam on it. Doesn't do a whole lot, but why not? My cooldowns are pretty much used. Let's just keep this guy going. Let's see if I can get a sensor scan before it goes down. Shields. There we go. That was a nice smooth run. Very happy with that. Glad the legs seemed to hold off. Let's give this team a GG. It's definitely a good team. Been pretty lucky with the pugs lately. Oh, someone posted the DPS in chat there. 38k, 39 almost, 39k. Alright. And yes, I will take a look at the damage breakdown as soon as I get out of here. Which I was recording this with Combat Log Reader, so I'll tab over to that and see how it went. And give a little bit of detail on where all the damage came from. And just excuse the video for a second here, the frame rate will drop. DxTory does not capture Combat Log Reader, so I have to tab over here. Alright, let's take a look here. Infected space. And alright. Oops. Let me, is this the right one? Just give me a minute here while I'm looking through. It should be right at the top here. Yeah, okay, here it is. All right, so looks like, so plasma explosions were the majority. Okay, so yeah, plasma explosions were there at just over 20%, 21%. Plasma particle emission was the next at 12%. PETs was next, so, and this is PET sum, so this is adding together all of the photonic fleet and my Danube runabouts. That was just under 10% damage. Next up came my anti-proton beams, then anti-proton beam fire at will, 2 and 1. Then next was gravity well, pretty close to those. Those were all, let's see, the anti-proton beam banks were 9%. The fire at wills were both right around 7%, and gravity well was right around, just under 7%. And the rest of the things are pretty low down there. Plasma torpedo spread was about 4%. So as you can see, the torpedo spread itself doesn't do a lot of damage. Most of the damage comes from the particle emission proc, the plasma cloud that it leaves. Especially with this, since this is an exotic damage build, that's where it mostly comes from. Anything else? There were some plasma fires in there. That was just 1%, and the rest is just very small percentages. So there it is. There's the breakdown. So again, mostly coming from plasma explosions and the particle emission proc. That's the majority. And then the anti-proton beams are next, fire at wills, and the gravity well is right close to contributing pretty equally there. Oh, tractor beam repulsor, I forgot to look at that one. That came in at 4.4%, so a little bit less there as well. But still decent. Pretty happy with that. All right, so I'll tab back over here. So there it is. That is the Vesta exotic damage build. I guess my final thoughts here is that, this is just a really, really fun ship. I've always loved this ship. It was my first C-Store ship, so I'm very partial to it. I enjoy the... just one of the strengths is just that it's so fun to fly, that you are activating a lot of abilities. It's very flashy with the gravity wells, the plasma explosions going off, the plasma clouds, using your tractor repulsors. Just a lot of fun. A lot more fun than kind of your standard, cruiser beam build, which, while it does perform slightly better, this ship is just definitely a lot more fun. A lot more active, a lot more active play style. We're using a lot more abilities. And, it still pulled 38k DPS, so, certainly no slouch. That's right up there, very close to the Tier 6 battlecruisers I was doing. They parsed a little bit higher, but this one did very good. Even as an old Tier 5 ship, Tier 5U. So, still a pretty solid ship, after it's been out for so long. Definitely a credit to it. So yeah, a lot of strengths there. I do also really like the bridge officer layout. Definitely, it's one of the strengths of this ship. The 2 universal slots give you a lot of flexibility, and you can see I slotted them out for damage, and it definitely does do good damage. It gives you also the chance to run 3 Romulan officers there with the 3 tactical slots, so a definite advantage there. I do also like the console layout. The 5 science and 4 tactical is a good balance. And I like only having 2 engineering slots, which is honestly plenty. It's just not the focus of this ship, so I like having it very heavily focused on the science and tactical slots. Having the secondary deflector, that's always a bonus too, since this is a true science ship. It does get that secondary deflector, so that's another advantage. So yeah, just a lot of advantage. It's maneuverable. It flies almost, like an escort. Honestly, it's very fast and maneuverable. Allows you to keep things in your frontal arc very easily. So yeah, a lot of really good strengths to this ship. As far as drawbacks, I think I could just name, I mean, it is a very squishy ship. That is one of the drawbacks. I think I made it through that, I mean, other than that warp core breach, which was kind of just a piloting error there, and I wouldn't blame that too much on the ship. It is a very squishy ship, though. I do remember in Pugs, if you are vastly out DPSing other people in the group and you're taking a lot of focus fire, you will go down. You don't have any, at least for the build that I'm using, you don't have a lot of defensive capability, especially if you get focused fired. You don't have like a reverse shield polarity or anything to help you get through that. But that said, I mean, with the 2 universal slots there, you honestly could, you know, if you wanted to balance this out a bit more, make it a bit more defensive, you could use these universal slots for an engineer or another science officer and put, you know, reverse shield polarity, aux to SIF. You put more, you know, transfer shield strength in there for science ability. So there are some definite options there if you wanted to make it a more survivable ship. You would just have to sacrifice some of the damage. And so that's it. So very happy with this ship. I mean, it's lasted a long time. It's a tier 5U upgrade that still performs up to the level of almost, you know, just underneath the top tier 6 ships, battle cruisers that just came out. It's a lot of fun to fly. I mean, what's not to love? It's the Vesta, and it still holds up great. I can only imagine what a tier 6 Vesta is gonna look like. Hopefully someday they'll come out with that, and I would definitely be buying it, that's for sure. But that is all, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Bye till next time.